Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We are welcoming Thrive for our first vendor spotlight. Today on the call, we have Jonathan Phillipson, Executive VP of Channel from Thrive, and Patrick Healy, Channel Director from Thrive. We're excited to hear them present on their solutions today. At the end of our webinar, we'll open it up for questions. Please feel free to throw any questions in the chat that you might have during the webinar. And I will turn it over to the Thrive team. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you for having us today, this morning. This is fantastic. So thank you, AVAIL. And just so everybody knows, the whole point of this, if there's questions that come up along the way, obviously you can throw those in a chat function, just as a housekeeping item, or if we want to reserve those to the end, and I'll defer to Sarah to potentially throw those at us even along the way as they may come up. But here's what we're going to chat about today. So we're going to tackle who Thrive is, and as Sarah said, is by way of introduction. I run the Channel and Alliances program here at Thrive. Pat Healy's on here as well. He is our channel director for the Mid-Atlantic, supporting the AVAIL partnership. So once again, thanks to AVAIL for having us. And the idea behind today is for the flow of this conversation, and I'll call it that versus a presentation, is we definitely want to make sure that we reinforce who Thrive is. From a managed services perspective, what does that even mean in 2024? So we're going to go deep with a core understanding in terms of who we are, specifically what we do in the managed services space. And really, if you think about managed services today, it seems like everything's a managed services. So we're going to be very surgical in terms of where we are, where we win, and where we just are not a fit. And that's a good thing, right? Because the last thing people want to do is bring in a managed services company for something that they don't want to support. So we're very surgical, as mentioned, in terms of what we do in the technology space, cloud, cybersecurity, and then what we also want to talk through is terms of what it means for our advisory services and consulting practices. So as we work through this, as you see over on the right-hand side of the screen, so to speak, I refer to this as our where we play very well and why we win, and where we help AVAIL with their end users, right? So at the end of the day, there's many needs for many clients, whether it's cloud, whether it's cybersecurity, whether it's data protection and disaster recovery needs, or it's something that you may need from a global network management, or you may just need us for some professional services. We work with companies where these technologies obviously intersect with their businesses. And at the end of the day, regardless of the end user, regardless of the vertical, we can definitely help out. And how we do help out is our technical teams, our sales teams, our account management teams, our consulting practices. We all operate off of a platform by the name of ServiceNow, and that is our single pane of glass. But it's one great way that we can provide the optimal client experience, reducing mean time to repair, and then obviously it affords for quicker response times, regardless of the technologies that people are consuming with us. So with that being said, I'll walk you through what the next handful of slides are. And then when we get to the cyber component of it, I'm going to push it back to Pat, and Pat's going to jump in here, and he's going to talk through obviously cyber. And then I'll work with you through the cloud practice, and then he'll work and chat with you all in reference to the advisory and the consulting practices that we offer here. So let's take a step back just to set the foundation, who we are, where we come from, and most importantly, where are the clients that we serve. So we've been around a bit. So we've been around since 2000. In all transparency, we did start out as a managed services provider. We have evolved over the course of time to become one of the most predominant managed security service providers that also has a very robust managed services practice. So we can fulfill the needs from and uphold someone's cybersecurity posture, as well as do the network route switch work when it comes to managed services. And we're going to talk through that specifically. So we're headquartered in Massachusetts. We employ roughly 1,400 employees throughout the globe, of which the more than half of those employees all are on our or they're on our technical teams. So they're there to serve the needs of our clients. And obviously you can read through the certifications, but where we help our clients within the base of 2,600 some odd customers that we support are in the sophisticated SMB space, as well as we serve the needs of the mid-market. And usually when we're in a conversation, like a physical conversation, we get the question, well, what do you mean by the sophisticated SMB? And I'll pause there I will articulate what that actually means and the best that I can over a webinar. The sophisticated SMB are those clients that are driven from complexities and compliances that run their businesses. They are individuals, they are businesses that see IT assets as a means to fuel the outcomes that those business want. So when we think of a 50-person firm that is say it's a private equity space, they value technology and they value the resources of the people processes that are behind the scenes fueling the outcomes that those individuals want. It's no different than, say, the same individual that's 5,000 employees where compliance also is steering their ship, so we can help navigate those waters, if you will. The verticals that we have a very strong alignment with are, as you can see, financial services, healthcare, life sciences, SLED or state local government spaces, as well as the professional space, legal, accounting, etc. And the services that we serve for those institutions, they range depending on the need or the complexity, if you will, from anywhere between cloud. And when we talk through the cloud, I'm going to come back to articulate what exactly that means, but private as well as public clouds, cybersecurity, data protection, network management, end user support obviously is at the helm. Now our differentiator is, despite the fact that we're 1,400 employees, we do have offices throughout the globe. We handle each one of our end users at a very regionalized level. So we are global, but we act local. And then from a support structure, we'll talk through what that looks like when we say that we are very dedicated from a white glove perspective. And in terms of going back to the actual services and the manner in which we serve them, there are some customers that will consume one or they consume everything. So we really work to understand what the needs of the business are and what are the outcomes that ultimately people are wanting to drive towards, meaning what are the initiatives that are on the proverbial whiteboard. And from there, we can design what solutions are best in alignment for the end users. So here's where we typically hang our hat, if you will. The outcomes that we generally are see, like the landscape, are from a cybersecurity standpoint. Obviously, we are a full-blown cybersecurity partner, but we also can go very deep in terms of being a soup to nuts provider. And if you will, I'm going to pivot real fast and I'm going to bounce over to one additional piece of information. Pat, do you mind, real fast, would you talk through where we can start with someone's cybersecurity journey and take them, and then I'm going to come back here in just 2 seconds.
Yeah, so in the spirit of taking somebody through the cybersecurity journey, we generally like to start in a couple different spaces, right? And it's really going to be a matter of building out that cybersecurity framework and stack. JP, did you want me to share my screen, or did you want to?
That'd be great. That'd be great.
All right. Go ahead and do that just so that we have something to look at here. All right, so when we start talking about cybersecurity within a client, within and really evaluating what it means to the client itself, Gartner came out with this cybersecurity mesh architecture, or CSMA acronym, or framework, a couple years back, right? And it was really guided around a central question from Thrive, like, what does Thrive do for our clients? And Gartner kind of came back with this and said, well, you guys are very specialized in the cybersecurity space. You offer a lot of different products, but you're a managed service provider and you're also a cloud services provider. Cybersecurity touches every instance of the business now, right? When you're talking with a client, or when you're talking with, internal at your organization, cybersecurity comes up every day, right? It's newsworthy. It's always one of these things where, the joke that I've brought up recently was within disaster recovery, right? It used to be that the talk track, was, well, what if my server environment, data center, or co-location ceases to exist, right? What if there's a natural disaster? Well, the conversation has pivoted to, what happens if I get a ransomware attack? What happens if I am breached and, I can't recover files? Like, what's my disaster recovery business continuity plan? We try to take a step back and understand how the business evaluates or values cybersecurity. And then we try to build a plan based off of our cybersecurity framework. And the way that we do that is we have a couple different buckets of services that you'll see here on this slide, right? We put them in 1, 2, and 3 tiers. If you look at the first one, that's essentially baseline services, right? That's regardless of the industry, regardless of the compliance structure that you're going off of. That is where Thrive feels this is what you should have regardless of where you are, right? That's traditional endpoint detection and response, or EDR, which is the acronym you utilized, email security, disaster recovery, security awareness training, patching, right? These are all very low hanging services, or we like to call them treadmill type services, right? Because what we've seen is our IT directors, IT managers, systems admins, security analysts are essentially on a treadmill with these services, and they're never going to get off, right? There's always something that pops up. They're never going to get ahead of it, right? It's always kind of a reactive service for them. We like to come in and essentially take that off of their plate so they can be more focused on either revenue generating exercises or being more of a visionary and a strategic leader for the organization to help guide them in the future, whether it be through a security vision or just from a technology path for that to help guide leadership down that road. When you start looking into bucket 2 and 3, you start to jump into different compliance areas as well, right? DNS filtering, vulnerability management, MDR, which is another famous 3-letter acronym in cybersecurity. It's a bit of alphabet soup when you're talking, within security, but MDR means a bunch of different things to a bunch of different vendors. For us, it's really including EDR with our security operations center and our SIM services as well, pulling in telemetry and then being able to analyze it and shooting it back to our clients via a very clear and concise dashboard, but also relying on us to do the response and depending on the services, the remediation itself too. Bucket 3, you're looking into the really advanced services that a lot of organizations are subscribing to now. Like, it used to be bucket 3 was really only for financial services, legal, banking, all the heavily regulated industries. Now what you're seeing is it's becoming more and more of a best practice to include all of these services, right? And it's not so much that we're looking to push this on our clients. It's more of an industry trend that we're seeing where clients are coming to us with, what can we do around this service, this need, this pain, right? And we try to meet our clients where they currently are. This slide also is a good visualization on how Thrive looks at the entire infrastructure. We are very cybersecurity focused. Excuse me. It doesn't matter where your data lives, we will secure it, right? It doesn't matter if you have an on-prem data center, if you're utilizing Azure, Google Workspaces, Office 360, Microsoft 365, our Thrive Cloud environment, it doesn't matter, right? It would be continuously monitored by our Security Operations Center. One good thing to note too is within our Security Operations Center, which is all Thrive badge W-2 employees, which are globally located, right? So we have a follow the sun model here at Thrive. It's always important to know that it is not outsourced here at Thrive, right? We can truly say that we are an MSSP with a strong security operations center in-house with eyes on glass and someone ready and willing to respond as quickly as possible. This just elaborates a little bit further and kind of pulls out the buckets that we just talked about. I think it does paint a nice picture as far as, you know, these different services, right? All of our clients could essentially go out and buy each one of these bullet points as an individual service. However, that gets them caught into this vendor sprawl, security product tool sprawl that we've seen over the years, right? Gartner put out a study where the average mid-size company has around 50 tools that are just within security, right? That can be a bit of a nightmare when it comes to managing it, making sure it's deployed properly, and then effectively monitoring and tuning everything to make sure you're getting what you're paying for out of those tools. We've seen a big shift into getting a lot of that, you know, consolidating that, getting it into a managed service so that you're actually getting what you're paying for and freeing up resources internally so that they can do, like I mentioned earlier, more beneficial things to the actual organization itself. You know, what we see a lot is IT directors or senior systems admins doing a lot of the low level tasks, like, you know, managing an EDR or doing patching, right? It's, you know, those are tasks that frankly are just below the pay grade of what those people are getting paid right now, right? So if you think about, you know, a monetary responsibility, you're paying more for those services if you're having those individuals do it than if you were to just have a third party service handle that there.
Hey, Pat.
Yeah.
Would you do me a favor? Would you help for the audience? Would you just articulate, like, one of the questions that's come up a lot is how do we handle incident response? Because that's obviously clearly listed. So walk them through what that means.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So this is a good segue into how we handle incident response, right? And we do have an incident response service that we've brought to our clients based off of a inherent need, right? And throughout the industry. This is just showing you how we pull telemetry into our SIM, our SOAR, and then via utilizing our portal and how our SOC team can analyze that and then get the proper people on the line to do remediation or response. From here, what we see from an incident response standpoint is it's not so much the reactive nature of incident response that's needed, right? It's the pre-planning of something that could come up. Because when you start talking about incidents, it's time to remediation, right? Or time to resolution, right? That's the biggest metric in the game when it comes to getting back up and running. We've seen that if you spend the time up front doing the pre-incident planning, right? Making sure that you have a proper incident response plan, making sure that the proper parties are engaged and understand what their roles will be in the event of an incident, it speeds up that time to time for a response or resolution or remediation, sorry. That is a game changer, right? The reason why we're able to do this is because we have the inherent knowledge of being a managed service provider, right? So we understand the day-to-day of patching, of monitoring servers, of monitoring desktops, of doing help desk, right? And we can help organizations build out that plan. We also have incident response tools that will be deployed via an agent to all the endpoints. This is probably one of my favorite parts of this program that we have because it acts as essentially a black box, right? If you're familiar with, an aircraft or airplanes, it will it will do like a compromise assessment right off the bat, right? It'll say if there's see if there's any sort of compromised assets, compromised endpoints to make sure that we're starting off with a clean slate. From there, if there is an incident, it'll give us even more forensic evidence to see where that incident started, what happened, and then that can give us a better idea as how to, well, one, contain it, but also how to prevent it moving forward, right? Because most of the issues that we see are not so much zero day, right? Or someone being actively hacked into. It's more of someone clicking on a link, an internal user clicking on something they shouldn't click, and then downloading something that it's inherently malicious. So one of the things that we've always talked about is planning out properly, making sure the incident response is properly planned out. All of the proper stakeholders are engaged, and then also making sure that the client understands that this is an incident response and remediation plan, and that there are specific items that need to be in place in order for Thrive to fully remediate, right? And that would all be documented prior or during this pre-incident planning piece.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And we're going to segue into the cloud, and I'll ask Pat, you navigate
Yep.
As we work through this. The whole point is it's a proactive stance for the term IT, cyber, and cloud resiliency, right? As you hopefully not, but if you do have to ever go navigate those waters, you have a partner in Thrive to help you through that. Now, as we segue through the cloud journey, we think through the eyes of public cloud, private cloud, and if we think about where we are in the world of 2024, 2025 coming up real quick, multi-cloud and hybrid cloud is 100% a reality. So it's not like it's one-stop shopping these days in terms of someone's cloud journey. So depending on the need of the business, we can help you go where you need to go. Um, just as just to shed some light internally on, our pulse in the market. So we do offer our own internal private cloud, and just to elaborate a little bit about that. We have 15 different geo-redundant facilities throughout the globe. Obviously, we have, um, you know, data centers that we occupy space in here within the United States, North America as well. We can help individuals create their own production facility. We can also build a backup and retention policy, whether you're in the local data center or whether you need to replicate that data over to another facility. So we can prepare for obviously any disaster recovery initiative that may be on someone's roadmap, or that they're thinking is obviously good for their business. We're a SOC 2 Type 2 organization. The model in which our private cloud environments are built on, it's all built on enterprise grade hardware. So best of breed names in the space, such as, Dell and Pure Storage and Cisco. That's what it's all designed on. And at the end of the day, it's designed to serve two things. We offer private cloud. We also offer what we refer to as multi-tenancy cloud. So private cloud is dedicated compute reserved exactly for the needs of an individual consumer, right? So if compliance takes you down that path and you need dedicated compute resources exclusively for you, we can design that for you. If it's multi-tenant, you can request, and usually what we see there is smaller institutions only need a handful of servers, and we could partition those and obviously protect and isolate those from other customers within our infrastructure units. And at the end of the day, each one of those different models is built on a predictable billing flat rated bill model. So you can understand what your spend would be on a month over month basis. And unless the compute needs change or the storage needs change, right? Or maybe you just need a lot more of stuff, you're going to proactively understand what your cost basis look like. So it eliminates a lot of the guesswork that we've all heard horror stories, if you will, in terms of what, you know, the public cloud and what that means. Now, from a public cloud perspective, I'll walk you through the next where we actually play in the public cloud space. So our proficiencies are in private cloud as well as the public cloud world. Now, if someone wants to go into the public cloud space, we're going to work with them on their Microsoft Azure journey. So the good news is we do have a portal that can be administered by us, potentially an end user, depending on the need. And if they have, whether it's private cloud clusters or whether they have their own data center or they're leveraging AWS and Azure, we can administer and have visibility through a single pane of glass. So if a customer does have both Azure as well as AWS, they would have visibility into that. Our proficiencies would take them down the Azure as well as that VMware-based environment. And then from a disaster recovery perspective, we leverage public cloud equally as much as what we do in the private cloud space. So if someone's design is to have a production environment running on premise in the United States or throughout the globe, and then they want to replicate that data up to a hyperscaler or a public cloud environment, we do that. And the underlying technology that we typically do that with is Zerto. But once again, where budget and someone's risk tolerance are, we'll align those strategies and come up with the best solution according to fit the need of the end user, regardless of the vertical that they're in. So lastly, on the public cloud, there's a lot of folks that are consuming a lot of licensing through the Microsoft platform, if you will, in this day and age. And the question that we typically help people with is, how do I leverage all of the features, the advantages, the benefits that I know I'm paying these Microsoft licenses for? So can you help me? And this is a very common question. Can you help me with my SharePoint initiatives? Well, the answer is yes. We have a platform services team, as we refer to them, to help someone with their complete 365 journey. And that's generally where a lot of the conversations are. But we want to help people, you know, not only get into the public cloud space, but maximize their spend where they're where they're already spending money. And then obviously we can help them procure, obviously, you know, depending on what people's needs are within that space.
Yeah, one of the things with Microsoft that we hear a bunch is, you know, I bought Microsoft 365 thinking it was going to be easy, and it turned out not to be. I had somebody from Microsoft tell me this a couple years back, and it was, if you think of Microsoft 365, you think of like the Lego kingdom that we all had as kids, and it was the box with, you know, the castle and the boats and all these, you know, different areas in which it was like, oh, this is so cool, right? There's so many pieces, right? It had like 1 million pieces in it. But when you open it, there's no instructions. And you're left to look at the box to build out that specific Lego set. That is Microsoft 365. And that is the pain that a lot of our clients have come to us with, right? So we've built out this program or this practice to alleviate a lot of those issues, right? And you don't have to, the one thing that's very nice, and I don't know if we've stressed this enough on this call so far, is that you don't have to subscribe to all of these services to get what you want. We are very a la carte when it comes to delivering services. And that's one of the big things that separates us from the pack, right? We are a large enough organization where we can provide, you know, Intune management as a standalone service to some of our clients. We could also do the end user security and compliance management, or if it's just backing up the Microsoft 365 tenant, right? it's just one area in which we're able to add a little bit more value, but be flexible, right? And understanding that a lot of clients don't need every service that we provide. Some do, but some don't. And we want to make sure that we fit, we don't want to fit a square peg into a round hole, but we want to make sure that, you're getting exactly what you need from Thrive.
No, that is spot on, and the Lego analogy is fantastic, and I think that resonates really well. So that was kudos to you.
The next piece is technology or technical advisory services, and this is where we kind of dive into the virtual CIO, virtual CISOs of the world, and compliance really as a talk track, right? We see this as a growing piece of our business. And again, this is really driven by what our clients have been asking for. The VCIO is something that's always interested me. And it's something that we've standardized as adding to almost every single opportunity and deal that we have. Because to me, it's invaluable to the client, and it's really not a very pricey service that we can bring to the table to get a ton of value back for our end user organization. One of the main goals for the virtual CIO is to be that technical translator, I like to say, but also someone for our end users to bounce ideas off of if there is something that does come up, or if there is a technology that they're interested in, or if something changes in the business and they want to make sure that they're aligning their technical future with that change. The BCIO will do, we call it a technology business review. That is essentially a year-long project where they'll do discovery and assessment, they'll do development of this TBR, then they will also do reviewing of it, and then ongoing strategic meetings with the client, and then they will refresh this, right? This is something that is a deliverable to our clients to say, hey, look, here's where you currently are. Here are the conversations that we've had to see where the future will be. Here's how to get there, right, in a roadmap fashion. Here's a sample of the actual assessment, just some of the areas in which they will go over from a control standpoint. We've based our assessment platform off of the CIS 18, right? So it's the top 18 controls. And the reason why we chose CIS is because it is a very broad security practice or security control guidance platform, but also it covers a lot of the bases, right? Because you also hear NIST, you hear CMMC, you hear a lot of these different compliance requirements come up, but it's, how do you touch all of them as an organization? Well, with a little twist here, a little twist there, you can kind of get to all of them, but CIS 18 sits right in the middle, and it's a very broad one for us to be able to hit a lot of those overlapping needs. What you'll see is, red, yellow, green, right? Blue, not managed. We're very simple when it comes to where our clients are sitting right now, right? Is it a high compliance area? Is it kind of? Is it not very compliant? Or is it just not managed at all? Red being bad, green being good, yellow being kind of, right? And then blue just being like not managed right now. The VCISO is one area of the business that we've seen a tremendous uptick, right? And these individuals are CISSP individuals that have sat in the specific security role themselves, right? They have the ability to not only prescribe what should be done, but they have the ability to sit with our clients and really build out specific policies and procedures that directly affect the business. And I'm not talking about putting together a templated approach. I'm talking about sitting with the client, interviewing stakeholders, consuming the current policies and procedures that they have, understanding where they currently are, and then developing either a new policy and procedure document, or highly customizing what's currently put together, right? And that's just one area of the deliverable surface, deliverable itself. Also have the ability to do, risk assessment and management, right? So the ability to almost do an assessment internally with this individual, right? Having them go through the documented policies, documented procedures. Do you have disaster recovery? Okay, well, let's take a look at how that actually works. When's the last time you tested it? Did it work? Do you have backup? Have you tested them, right? It's all these different areas that come into play. But then there's, hey, I have to map to CMMC. I'm a government contractor. I don't have that right now. Okay. Our VCISO team has experts on the CMMC side, but also they have the ability to reach back into the team itself, right? I think that's something that gets lost in translation a little bit. You are assigned a person for the VCISO engagement, but they have a whole team of people internally that they can bounce ideas off of themselves, right? So you're really getting an economies of scale in that asset because of the amount of expertise that this team brings to the table. You're not just, you know, pigeonholed with one person at the end of the day, right? You get the mind share of the entire team. So they can do gap analysis, right? So where you currently are now versus where you need to be for CMMC. Or if you're looking to do, ISO 27001 or any NIST, whatever it may be, right? You're able to get that value out of that person themselves. But then once you get to that point of like, hey, we know where we are, we know where we need to be, we have an idea of our incident response plan, we have an idea of risk assessment and management. How do we build out this program, right? They will be the ones to assist you in actually building out the cybersecurity program that aligns with the business needs, but also is a scalable one too, so that you can properly hit those milestones as you move forward. The consulting services ties very well into the VCIO and VCISO services. These are more of our one-time style assessments, penetration testing, and then compliance services as well. We have a couple different assessments that we offer, and one of our most popular is our cyber risk assessment. That is one that I've done many over the last couple years, but I think it brings the most value from a where are we now to where do we need to be type engagement, but it gives the IT director, CIO, whoever it may be at the client, the ammo to go to the CEO, the owner, leadership, the board, and say, this is where we're lacking. This is where we need assistance. This is why I've been asking for help for the last year and a half on these different areas, because we have risk here, right? And this is how we propose to fix said risk or mitigate said risk. With that cyber risk assessment, you get an output that would give you essentially a roadmap of services that gives you a one-time fee and also a monthly recurring fee to address said issues. It would be industry standard or industry agnostic, right? So it wouldn't necessarily be Thrive prices, which is a nice twist to, how we deliver these assessment findings. But same thing with IT operations and governance, more on the traditional IT operations side, not so much fully focused on cybersecurity. We also have a Microsoft 365 assessment, which really dives into how your Microsoft 365 tenant is set up, right? Are there any compromises? Are there any issues internally to help secure and protect company data? We also have a couple express and hybrid assessments where our cybersecurity risk assessment, IT operations and governance assessment, and Microsoft 365 security assessment are all very heavily involved from a labor perspective within Thrive. They're generally around 45-day engagements. The express and hybrid assessments are more of a shared responsibility with the client and our resources, right? So we're not necessarily going to be finding the evidence ourselves in those. The client would be providing the information, and we would kind of be digesting it and giving it back in um, a more consumable fashion.
Yep.
The SEC readiness assessment is one that we do a ton for our financial services clients. Helps them align with the new SEC cybersecurity standards. It's super important, and it's one of those ones that we've seen heavy demand for. But again, this is one that has a ton of value to board members, ownership, CEO level, but then it also gives the IT team the ability to properly scale that security program based off of the actual need of in the organization. Again, we mentioned the team itself, right? We have a little over 40 full-time employees that are part of that consulting and advisory services team, right? These are all, CISSP, CISM, certified individuals. A bunch of these team members have sat in the role itself, right? They've been a CISO, they've been a high-level security engineer, they've been a high-level security director, they've been IT directors, whatever it may be. They've sat in your seat before, right? And they can give a different take on current issues that you may be seeing. The one thing that I like about our consulting team, and what I like to mention a good amount, is be hard pressed to find an issue that our team hasn't come across. And I think that's a very powerful discussion point, because every organization is different, but there are a lot of overlap on common pain points. So with our expertise and our years of experience, we've come across pretty much everything, and we have at least an opinion or a approach to how to remediate most, if not all, issues. Again, this is just a little bit more information on how we go through the consulting approach, right? It's a lot of deep discovery, evidence collection, reviewing what's currently there, staff interviews. This is a full 45-day process, right? It's a lot of, do you have this? Prove it type exercises.
Mm-hmm.
Who handles it? Let's interview that person, right? So you have disaster recovery. Prove the documentation, right? It's all going through that and making sure that it's something that we can give you back that says, you do have this, you proved it, here's the evidence. And then we can kind of spit out an executive overview that you can pass up the chain, but also there's a detailed technical analysis that you can leverage to further build out the proper process or further build out what's needed moving forward. Then JP, you want to take us home?
Yeah, sure. I'll do that. And thanks for taking over halfway through the initial part of this. I was dealing with some computer stuff, but at the end of the day, we're here from an MSSP, managed services provider as well. Obviously, depending on whether it's an assessment, whether you leverage us for the collab space, protection, data protection, if you will, we literally are here to help you take you on your complete IT journey or be a part of it, depending on the complexities of the business. So the one piece is, I was dealing with my computer over here, that I wanted to touch on, regardless of the vertical that you find yourself or your clients find themselves. It goes without saying, I'll elaborate on our pod structure. So regardless of the technologies, but where you are from an industry perspective, we are going to align you from a support perspective in a respective pod. And the pod, and here's just a couple examples at the bottom of what I'm referring to. So whether you're healthcare or legal or financial services, for example, just name three, you're going to be working with engineers and service technicians that 100% speak your language, that understand the applications on a day-to-day basis. We don't do the application management, but we need to understand what applications you're using, and then above them from an escalation path, depending on whether you're consuming cloud services or security services or whatever the services may be. We are in alignment with the specific needs of, the end user or your end users, if you will, and the products in which they're consuming. And then obviously the same assessment and consultory services that Pat was just elaborating on, we can layer over the top of those. So we're here to help Avail and its clients, in close out the loop, as Pat was alluding to. So if there's any questions, and Sarah, if there's any questions that come up after this, obviously we will help triage those. Just help us with that. I don't know whether you've gotten any along the way, though. I'd be more than happy to answer if there were.
I didn't have any that came in the chat, and I did have a couple questions, but honestly, you covered most of them. I would say the one that we're still hearing as an organization, and one that came in is, what are you hearing about VMware?
That's a great question. So, Pat, I'll take that real fast. I mean, at the end of the day, I would say that the devil's in the details with that question right there. And that's a big one. But at the end of the day, we are keeping a pulse on the impact, what it means in the marketplace. It obviously there is a lot of confusion for end users, meaning what does the Broadcom acquisition of VMware mean for the end user from a licensing perspective? We can help navigate those waters and help with the narrative, if you will. Obviously, as people obviously are looking at the price tags and potentially, in some cases, escalation of pricing when it comes to their licensing model, we can help there. We can obviously provide what alternatives look like for them, for end users to potentially come into a private cloud or evaluate private cloud versus, public cloud, i.e. Azure. And that's generally where we help facilitate and navigate those questions, if that makes sense.
It does. Thank you. I will give one more opportunity for anybody on the call to ask some questions. But if nothing comes in, I'd like to say thanks to Thrive for today. This was a wonderful presentation, very informative. We'll look forward to sharing it with the rest of our company and all of our customers as well. This is great. So thank you for our first vendor spotlight.
Thanks so much, Sarah.
Yeah, appreciate the time.
Thank you.
You guys got it. Thanks. Have a great day.
You too.
Cool. Thanks
Bye-bye.
a lot. Bye-bye.